Welcome to the Sharpe Way Show. Yes, it is 7 p.m. on the East Coast, and I'm back after a weekend of doing, I don't know, all different types of things out there, collecting signatures, grabbing people, trying to get them to support candidates, and all types of cool stuff. But I'm back here with you all, and a lot has been going on, of course, as is always. The video that we did on Friday, oh my God, people are loving that video. If you have a chance, head on over to our YouTube pages, YouTube Sharpe Way or YouTube Larry Sharpe, and you will see the video that we did on the Red Table Talk regarding African-American and Asian-American animosity and hate. Really popular. They took me down from Facebook because Facebook doesn't love me. So they pulled me down, but it is still up on our YouTube pages. Feel free to go pop over there and check those out. Not now, stay with me now, but afterwards, heading over there. There is some stuff going on coming up here. And I wanted to bring this up because it may not be as good as some people may think, depending upon where your head is, on two very controversial issues: abortion and guns. Yes, the Supreme Court is going to be taking up eventually, I think this fall, cases, and they will also include some cases, some gun laws coming out of New York State. I told you guys, I tell you all the time, and you laugh at me, but I tell you all the time, you got to care about New York, because what happens in New York is coming to your state. New York and Mississippi, when it comes to guns and abortion, the court is going to look at them, which is a big deal because usually it just ignores them and goes, oh, whatever, oh, good, but they're actually going to sit there and, check it out and give an opinion. This could change a lot. Michael Smerconish, guy who I watch every weekend, had a segment on it, and it made me really think about why people would care and not care, and what is the biggest issues, what are the biggest issues regarding this. And he brought up a bit. I want to cover some of that and talk about it, and I think you'll enjoy his take.
All rise for the midterms. I'm Michael Smerconish in Philadelphia. Historically, voter turnout for midterm elections is a big drop-off from presidential years. And
now he brings up a very important point off the bat. He says that immediately you'll notice that in the midterms, voter drop-off is common, right? People tend to be very excited about the presidential election. That's exciting. But then you go to the midterms and people are like, well, whatever, my congressman, whomever, they don't care as much. And that's true, very common. But something else often happens too, which is very often the opposite. Whoever won the presidency, the other party tends to do a little bit of winning, right? A little bit of winning. That's the issue. They do some winning and people are worried about that. So they're worried about, if the Supreme Court makes decisions, will that affect the midterms? Now, we shouldn't care about that, right? We shouldn't. I know we do. We should only care about, is this an important issue? But boy, does timing matter. Listen to some of the things he brings up, which will be very interesting.
usually, the more motivated voters are those from the party not occupying the White House.
Correct.
In midterms, since George W. Bush's second term.
Look at this. Bush, Democrats plus 36. Obama, Republicans plus 69. Obama, Republicans plus 22. Trump, Democrats plus 38. This is a common thing. It happens often, right? It happens often.
The party of the incumbent president has lost an average of more than 40 seats in the Senate and House.
So the average is 40 seats that the incumbent president loses. Of course, what does that mean? That means that Biden's got to be afraid. He's got to be scared. If I'm Biden, I'd be afraid. If you are Biden, you should be afraid. Biden should be scared. Because if he loses 40 seats, he loses the House. He's got a Republican House. That is not going to go well for him. If I'm him, I'd be jumping through hoops, trying to get stuff to happen, right, to keep that House somehow. If I'm Biden, I'm trying to break this trend. I don't know how you break it, but I'd be jumping through hoops using magic powers to break this one.
Combined. And all the Republicans need is a handful of congressional seats.
Bingo.
And one senator to put Kevin.
So if they get plus 6, Republicans gain 6, and Republicans lose 6, Republicans own the House. If they get plus 1 in the Senate, Republicans own the Senate. This is a big deal. And so you can see that they care about what happens in the midterms directly, because any little change changes everything.
McCarthy and Mitch McConnell back in control of the House and Senate, respectively. No doubt that explains this week's opposition of both those individuals to any congressional 9/11 style inquiry into.
So now he brings up the idea of the reason why he believes they don't want a January 6th commission is because they're afraid that may affect them in the midterms. I think he's right, but he's right for both sides, right? In this case, he's saying, well, this is why, Republicans don't want it, which is true, but it's also why Democrats do want it, right? This isn't a one-sided thing. Democrats want it too, and they really want to make sure they can find reasons to hammer home and trash Republicans in 2022. And this is why Republicans are scared, because they're like, wait a minute, if Democrats do this thing, they're going to use it as a hammer, a political hammer. Yes, accurate statement. I think this is both sides. McConnell is acting like it's only Republicans. No, this is both sides.
The events of January 6th, the inevitable drip, drip, drip of revelations that would result could bring nothing but harm to the GOP. And the release of any final report would coincide with the beginning of midterm campaign season.
100% correct. If that report came out, it'd be right during midterm campaign season. And now Democrats are going to have a whole lot of commercials. And that's what they want.
There remains, however, another midterm intangible that cannot be avoided by either party.
And this is Supreme Court.
Cases will be heard this fall by the Supreme Court.
Now, here is you looking at things up there. It looks like there are 6 conservative and 3 liberal judges in the Supreme Court. Now, in theory, that's true. But I'm going to tell you guys something that many people won't tell you. While in theory, this is true, in reality, you can't be sure. And this is why. Remember something. If you are a Supreme Court judge, you are the equivalent, and some of you are going to be upset when I say this, but you are the equivalent of a high priest in a religion. Why do I say that? Because while everybody has their own view, left, right, conservative, liberal, but number one thing they all care about is the scripture. They are going to be looking at what they think is legal. They are all interpreting not the issue itself. They're not interpreting how we feel about it. And in many cases, they're not even interpreting the results. Sometimes not even results. They are interpreting their scripture, meaning law. That's what they care about more than anything. So even if you personally might say, well, this should be a liberal or conservative issue, you will find that very often, specifically conservatives, they will switch. Why will the conservatives switch? Because a conservative, generally speaking, more than a liberal, but liberals too, but more than liberal, are very much about the Constitution and the law, very much about that, more than even liberals are. And if something that is open for a liberal look of it, they'll go liberal because the law, the scripture, right? That's an issue that you got to realize. I mean, look at someone like Justice Scalia, clearly a conservative jurist, right? Clearly, right? No doubt. Everyone would say that. When it came to criminal justice, he was kind of liberal. Why? Because he looked at the Bill of Rights and said, that's my scripture. That matters. The Bill of Rights matters. And the Bill of Rights is very liberal when it comes to criminal justice. It just is, right? Rights that we have, all those things. So don't be surprised if one or two of these conservatives goes, wait a minute. And the reverse, don't be surprised when the liberals goes, wait a minute. It is possible they will if they read their scripture or their laws in a different way than you might imagine. So just remember that. It is possible. Don't be shocked.
Which has been reshaped by 3 Trump-nominated justices. Rulings will come on 2 of the most hotly contested issues in American politics.
Yes.
Abortion and gun rights.
This is crazy in my view. Both abortion and gun rights coming at the same time in the Supreme Court. Wow. Wow.
Here's a brief primer. The abortion case, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization.
Yes, this is Mississippi.
Seeks to overturn a Fifth Circuit court block of a Mississippi state law enacted in 2018, which banned abortions after 15 weeks.
Now, this bans abortion after 15 weeks. This is a tough one because there's more coming behind this.
Wade precedent protects abortion rights at the point of viability or a gestational age of about 23 or 24 weeks for a fetus. The Mississippi case would reduce that timeline by about 2 months.
Yep. And there's another one, right? Texas governor, this is the one, is 6 weeks.
By the way, not to be outdone, this week Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed a law that would effectively ban abortion after just 6 weeks. Take a look at this map. It shows.
Now, this map's important because I want you to realize something. For those of you who know where my view is, I'm anti-abortion. I am. I've said it more than once. I'm anti-abortion. With that in mind, I do not consider myself pro-life because I think overturning Roe v. Wade or any of these in the long run is going to create actually more abortions. I know there are many people who will be mad at me when I say that, but my goal in America is less abortions. I would like less abortions because women choose to have less abortions, that they decide they have better choices when it comes to birth control and when it comes to carrying a baby to full term. The country is not good at either of those two compared to other countries. We need to be better at that. We need to have more options for women to take that baby to term, and we need more options for easier options for women to have contraception so that they don't get pregnant in the first place. Both of those two things should happen. I would like to make abortion obsolete, not illegal. When you make abortion illegal, what you wind up doing is punishing poor women. Why do I say that? Look at those states. If this happens and basically abortion becomes basically illegal in those areas, what's going to happen? The poor women in those areas are going to have back alley abortions, and the middle class or wealthy women are going to drive to a state where they can get an abortion and go get an abortion. So the poor women are going to be punished, and the wealthy or middle class women are going to be okay. The wealthy women will be, of course, they're wealthy, so they do what they want because they're wealthy. That's how it works. So that's going to happen. My other worry is if this actually happens, if it does actually happen, what you're going to find happen is in states, they're going to codify abortion locally. They're going to say and abortion is going to become synonymous with. This is my other worry. And I think some people who are pro-life, in my view, are so strong on one side, they don't care about the consequences. And here is a consequence that I would like to avoid because I want less abortions in America. What I don't want to happen, which is going to happen, is already happening, is if you are pro-life, people are going to see you not as pro-life, but as anti-woman. We see that happening already. And if that begins to happen, you're going to pull women away from the pro-life area, and you're going to push them in to a pro-choice area because they're going to rebrand it as pro-women. That's how they're going. They're already rebranding it now. That rebranding is already happening. This happens, it'll happen almost overnight. This is what you're going to see on CNN, MSNBC, or when a Fox person comes on, they're fighting a Fox person. If you say anything about this, so you hate women, that is going to be how they spin it. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be a disaster. So I know that some people are like, yay, this is a great thing. If this actually happens, New York State's going to codify abortion within a year. So will California. And they will make it to where it is legal. This is going to make it to where you get an abortion when your kid's 4 years old. Bring him back in and kill him. That's how crazy it's going to be. That is how crazy it's going to be. Going to be just, you and anyone who's against abortion, they're going to start saying I'm anti-woman. That's going to be, Larry, how can you want less abortion? What are you, anti-woman? That's going to happen to me. I'm going to have to deal with that garbage if this happens. And I would like it to not happen. I would like to respect a woman's right and show her that she doesn't have to do this, that there are other options. I would love that. I'm trying to change that. While this may look good to people who are pro-life, this is not a good thing. It isn't. It feels like you're winning. I know. There's a part of me that, what I love about this, by the way, and I do have a part of me, and some of you people who are pro-choice will be mad at me for this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. What I love is that the issue's back up again. That I do like. I like that we hadn't forgotten. I do like that. That I'm happy about. But if this actually happens, the long run is bad. The long run's not good. The long run is now this becomes pro-anti-woman, not pro-anti-abortion. And that is my concern. So I hope that's clear. The sad part is my view makes almost everybody upset because so many people want me to jump on one side and the other in a very specific way. but I don't want to be righteous or shake my fist at people. I want actual impact. Actual impact. When I ran for governor, I said it. I promised everybody that there would be less abortions in New York State if I was governor after 4 years. I promise, and I stand by that. And how would I do that? By making surrogacy legal, by making adoption easier, by making contraception over the counter without having to have a prescription, by doing things like that so that people don't go to China or Romania or Russia to get a baby. They can come to New York and get a baby and make surrogacy a thing. If you have a baby, there are tons of couples that would happily, willingly pay for all of your medical expenses and pay you a monthly fee to make sure they can get your baby and happily take care of your baby. Happily. For those of you who don't know, I'm adopted. So there's a little bit of a personal piece for me, right? A little bit of a personal piece for me. So just so you understand where my head is on this one. So that's what I'm trying to do. We should make it to where people decide, you know what? I don't got to do this. Not required. I don't have to. I have other options available that are good for me, that will work for me, that will be the right answer for a woman who's gotten herself pregnant. Well, who got pregnant? You can get herself pregnant, but who got pregnant?
The result of a New York Times analysis as to where abortion rights would be restricted if Roe were to be overturned. And then there's the gun case.
Yes, love this one.
The precedent at issue is Justice Scalia's 2008 opinion in DC versus Heller, which interpreted the Second Amendment to mean that citizens have the right to gun ownership at home.
Yes, so we have a right to gun ownership at home. This is New York, by the way. This is New York, by the way. That's pushing this issue. New York is now saying, for those who don't understand what's happening in New York, is that New York is saying, if you want a gun in outside of your home, you have to have a reason for that. You have to have a reason for that. Otherwise, you don't get one. That's what New York State says. Well, the Supreme Court, I hope, will disagree. This one, for me, is a big win. If the Supreme Court goes our way, I think alone this is a big win because this is opening up stuff. This is opening up choice.
Lower courts have been citing part of that decision that says the right is not unlimited to allow for some regulations. Now the court will rule.
Well, look, the reality of it is, I get that, right? The reason why the court is never going to say there's no regulation is because they're worried about the guy or gal, particularly the very wealthy person, who's going to buy a fleet of tanks and roll them down the street or whatever the case. They're worried about that kind of thing. I get it. I'm not sure I agree, but I understand why they say it.
On a New York law being challenged in the case, New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Corlett.
New York State, take that. See, doing some work here.
It requires a resident to show demonstrable need to be licensed to carry a concealed handgun outside the home.
See that?
In other words, the court is being asked to say that concealed carry is also a part of the Second Amendment.
That's the point. Are we going to make concealed carry part of the Second Amendment? People, when I was running, kept saying, Larry, we got to do concealed carry across constitutional carry. I'm like, you can't do it in New York. New York's saying no. That's a bridge too far. But if the Supreme Court actually says, no, you can't do this, New York, we have a shot. We have a shot, New York State. If we win this thing in 2022, we have a shot. And I'll go one step further. We have a shot, and we have to change our governor, because our governor and our assembly will find a way to get around this and still stop guns in New York State. They will find a way. I don't know how yet, but they'll say, well, yeah, anyone can have it if these 5 things that no one can get happen. They'll find a way.
The Supreme Court takes the summer off. These 2 cases will be argued in the fall. Decisions will come in the spring or early summer of 2022. Should the court adopt conservative positions, that might remind a Republican base of the importance of White House control and spur a GOP turnout, which...
Now, that's the issue here. And that's what I wanted to cover here. I wanted to cover both of those issues. And then what's the backlash, right? And my view on the abortion piece is, even though I'm anti-abortion, as I expressed, I kind of hope that they knock this down, because then we keep the conversation open. We can make cultural change. The abortion issue is actually a cultural issue far more than is a legal issue. So I still want that cultural change that I speak about constantly when it comes to abortion. It's a cultural issue. We can make things better, easier. This does not have to be the way of things. It can be different if we choose so. When it comes to guns, I really hope the court is on our side here, because that will stifle New York State and give us a chance to make some different gun laws and also challenge other gun laws, right? If this happens, it opens up so many other challenges to New York State gun laws. It is amazing. So I'm really hoping that we get the right decision when it comes to the Second Amendment next year, or at the end of this year, whenever they actually pick it up. It'll either be end of this year or beginning of next year, whenever that happens. I really hope so. If that happens, what a home run that would be for us. We have an actual chance at changing New York State gun laws. That would be amazing. So that's a big hope that happens. But the other issue is, depending upon how this comes down, this can be a motivating factor for the left or the right to come out. What I'm hoping it is for us to come out, for libertarians, for liberty-leaning people to come out, so that we can come out and have a real impact next year. 2022 can be an amazing year. An amazing year. We have to come out. The problem is we may actually put instead, we may get the left or the right out. So let me grab a couple of comments. I knew there's going to be a bunch of comments here. I'm happy to cover all of these. So, all right, let's see here. 09 says gun confiscation is unconstitutional. I'm not sure where you're going with that one. I'm not sure. AMA, I found you on Clubhouse. Do you ever use that platform? I almost never. I mean, here or there. I'm going to be on Clubhouse this Thursday at 10:30. There's going to be an event with the People for Liberty, I think, and I'm going to be on that. Clubhouse is fine. I like Clubhouse, but Clubhouse it's ephemeral. It goes away. I can't keep it and re-show it. Everything I say is now gone. I get 20 or 40 people, 100 people maybe. I can do this and get several thousand. It's not effective for me in general, but I do go on here or there. It's not that much. Pete, of course, says $28 trillion debt. Thanks, Pete. Murrow, sorry, and elect Libertarian Party members to replace all the incumbents. Yeah, I would like that too, especially Zionist supporting traitors. I'm not sure I would go that far, Jeffrey, but I get it. Let's stick with the Libertarian part. How about that? It's good. Walter says Biden is too senile to be scared. You know, Walter, maybe he is. I don't know where his head is, but whether he is or isn't, his people are, right? I mean, for sure his people are. Absolutely. So if I'm Biden, I would have passed as many leftist laws as I can. You're right, Dave. That's why he's pushing stuff into an executive order and trying to push stuff now. You're right. If I was him, I'd be doing the same thing. That's actually a smart move. Right? Push your agenda now because you may not be able to in 2 years. I'm not saying I want his agenda. Clearly, I don't. This is politics, right? We need to understand what people are thinking. And if I'm him, yes, 100%. I'm pushing everything I can. I'm glad you put, but I'm not Biden, as I'm not either. Yes, of course. So Alex says, I'm sure they'll rig another election once again. Alex, you bring up a very important point. If we don't have confidence in our elections, does it matter the outcome? It's a serious question. If we think that every election is rigged, then does it matter? One of the biggest issues we have to work on is us as a nation trusting our elections. And we haven't done a good job of that. We've either done one of two things. It's rigged, who cares, done, and that's it. That's option one. That's not a good option. Or it's not rigged, shut up. Also not a good option. There has to be some form of bipartisan group of people getting together, allowing skeptics to be into, to draw most people into a view that says, yeah, this is what happened or this isn't what happened. And I said it before, I don't believe there was enough shenanigans that affected the election, but I could be wrong. And I accept that I might be wrong. So I'm not concerned about an inspection. I'm happy to have one. I think I'll be right. And if I am right, awesome. We can have an inspection with all types of people, not just the right with Arizona. That wasn't good either. That was just people on the right. That also wasn't good. It needed to be completely agreed by both sides, with both people there going, okay, what's going on? Now, still some people are going to believe no matter what, it's clean, and some people, no matter what, it's dirty. That was going to happen. But I'd rather have at least a bunch of people go, oh, so that's the truth. And if I'm wrong, I'm happy to admit it. Okay, there was more shenanigans than I thought there was. Okay, I'm wrong. Election's rigged. Okay, fine. Or, hey, I was right, guys. Wasn't that much. There was clearly issues. Everyone agrees to that. Well, I'm sorry. Most people agree there were issues. But again, if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be wrong. Well, I'm not happy to be wrong. It would suck if I'm wrong. But I will happily accept. There we go. I would happily accept that I'm wrong. But I don't think I am. But the problem is we're probably never going to find out. That's the worry I have. That's the problem I have. And people, Alex, you're not alone. There are literally tens of millions of Americans who think exactly how you think. And that's a problem. So, all right. Let's see here. Jeff says if they do their job properly, then the political affiliation of the Supreme Court justice should be relevant. Jeff, agreed. And I think, to be forward, I think usually the Supreme Court does a decent job. Usually. I mean, compared to our other branches, the Supreme Court's awesome, relatively. I mean, it makes mistakes too. But compared to the other two, it's great compared to those two. But I do think you're right. They need to be that way. I think most of the time they are. Dave says, just wait. Democrats release the report before the midterm primaries. Democrats release all mask mandates 45 days before general elections to get the credit. That's not a bad idea. That's actually smart, Dave. That's actually smart. Well, don't tell them. Let me get you off real fast while you watch. Anyway, my 2 cents says some of them were in on it. That's the problem. The organizer of the event, the Ali guys working with the Mo book. I don't know where that was. I think you're talking to someone else, not me. Sorry about that. So yes. Elastic Rap says Robert should probably be more toward the middle or on the liberal side for any political polarizing decisions because he's terrified of being perceived as partisan. Oh, see, I don't know Roberts that well. Is that a thing that he does? Maybe. But I mean, in theory, even if that happens, that's still, it's 5-4 then versus 6-3. So I think the court is still a conservative court in general. I think that's still true. So David says Supreme Court interprets the laws. They are lawyers, not legislators. Yes, David, I agree completely. And that's how it should be. I'm not happy with that. And I think, again, generally they do a good job. Not always. I'm not always happy, but compared to the other two branches, they're killing it compared to those two. So Matt says, I don't doubt the GOPers will be able to overlook the morality bankrupt activities of their party candidates, just as the Dems overlook the morality bankrupt activities of their candidates. I agree. It's all theater to pull at the heartstrings and minds in the middle. This is a valid point, right? I mean, you do find that both sides are so concerned about fighting the other, they don't care if their guy or gal is bad. They just don't. Yeah, my guy murdered someone, but your guy murdered 3 people. So he's worse. I'm with my guy. I think that's a common problem. Yes. So let's see if I can do this here. I believe in furthering birth control. It's the idea of children growing up in poverty. I believe in. Oh, I see what you're saying. I think you're saying you. Look, I don't want us to stop or limit anyone from having children. I'm not one of those guys who's like, we got too many people, population control. That's not me. I know some people believe that, and I'm okay with that. It's your belief, and you don't want to have children or whatever. Do you? I don't want any parent having kids they don't want, right? Of course, I don't want that. And I think if that's going to happen, I'd rather have birth control than I would abortion, without question. There's no doubt I'd rather have that. But also, I'd rather have a world, an environment, which we don't have now, to where families are actually supported by our courts, where families are actually supported by our institutions, to where it's easier and better to have an actual family, to where every family isn't by default, and somehow all involuntarily blended. I'm not against blended families at all. I had a blended family. I get it completely. I'm adopted. I get it, of course. But there's a difference between having a blended family because you believed it was the right answer versus feeling like there's no other choice because everything's collapsing around you. And that includes things like terrible courts. That includes things like terrible environment. It includes things like people being selfish in the way they act amongst each other. It includes all types of cultural issues. It includes how the how the courts work, everything you can imagine, all those different things, cultural issues to whether or not is my marriage about me or is it about the group? All those things are affecting our marriages and our families and whether we get married and such, all those things. There's so much work we have to do in that. We should work far more in that than we should anything else. And so that people want to have children. But the second thing is, if you want to be a surrogate, if you want to adopt, why are we going to foreign countries for that? It's so hard we're going to foreign countries for that. Makes no sense to me. It can be a whole lot easier. So yes. Regarding abortions, no one could have explained that better. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that. Thank you. John says, you're exactly right, Larry. Any prohibition on any item will create a black market underground. Yes, absolutely. There we go. That needs to be on Sharpe clips. Wow, perfectly stated. Thank you, Jimmy. So I guess, team, you listening? Jimmy's right. Do what Jimmy says. So we should have one of those. I love that. John says, being anti-abortion isn't anti-woman, though. It's pro-life. I agree, right? And that's yeah, of course. Yes. My worry, John, isn't that it is or isn't. My worry is the branding that will come from it and the emotional feeling that will come from it. That's really my concern, right? That's the issue. So yes, it is pro-life. The woman can carry the baby full term as long as the mother is not in harm's way. Bid for adoption. I think she means that. Yeah, you mean for adoption. Sorry. Yeah. I'll give it for adoption. There are a ton of couples that can't have a hard time having kids. Again, that's my point, John. And in many states, they've made it difficult for people to adopt. So difficult, they go to foreign countries to get babies. I agree. And in certain states like New York, it's been illegal. I think New York just relaxed that restriction last year, I think. I was complaining about it my entire time when I was running for governor. It was illegal to be a surrogate. Yes, it was illegal. How could it be illegal? Oh, you're farming babies and selling babies and stuff. That was the concept behind it. Insanely stupid. But now they actually sell babies from other countries now. That actually happens now. So instead, you make it legal here for surrogacy, and that stops because we won't have to buy babies from other countries because we'll be able to get babies right here. So that was the reason for it being illegal in many states. The idea was, well, we'll be selling babies and such. Insanely dumb, not real. What happened is when they put the ban on it, we were literally buying babies from overseas. So their attempt to stop babies from being bought and sold increased babies being bought and sold. What? Government made a mistake? Yeah. I agree with you completely, John. I'm worried about branding. Remember, for those of you who have any real strong view on abortion, remember the average American, they hardly think about it at all. It's not part of their world. They're not in politics. They don't have it. It's done. They don't think about it. All they hear is the brand, right? And if the brand is, oh, you people who are anti-abortion, pro-life, you're anti-women. Oh, if that's the brand, if that's what they see on CNN or whatever, Bill Maher or whatever if that's what they see, they're going to believe that. They're not going to do the homework. It's not their issue. They don't care. They're going to go on the surface, and the surface is the branding. That's the issue. So Kenneth says, you should be the official spokesperson of the LP. Oh, thank you. I've never heard anyone explain their positions or reasoning as well as you do. Thank you, my friend. That's a big compliment. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yes. So my 2 cents says, my thing is you can't have it both ways. You have to compromise birth control options and have it funded and covered. I don't like abortions either, but I'm not the one taking care of the baby. I think you can. And what does that mean? Several things. I'm going to go down a crazy road. And that road is, think of all the money that we have spent on legal fees, on challenges to, against and for abortion, abortion rights, Roe v. Wade, all those things, and take every single dollar we spent on that and instead spend it on a technology like artificial wombs. I'm not joking. Very serious. What if we had done that? Maybe we wouldn't have one yet, but we'd be thinking about it. We'd be talking about it. It'd be interesting. And when we start talking about artificial wombs, what do you start thinking about? How early can you put the baby in? How early can you get the baby to go into the artificial womb? What are we talking about? We're talking about babies and abortion, and we're coming up with answers and ways of giving a woman another option, right? Imagine if you could put a baby in an artificial womb and say, I'm making this up. I have no idea what the rules would be, but for sake of argument, I don't know, 10 weeks. You're 10 weeks pregnant, artificial womb. Anyone can then have the baby, assuming that would work. I don't know how well that would work, but let's say it wouldn't work. Let's say artificial wombs are sci-fi fantasy and I'm wrong and it can never happen. Okay, then we're still figuring out how do we support the mom if she's ill, if she's sick. You can now support the mom better. Whatever technology you learn in the artificial womb, if it is impossible, you'll still be able to help women. It will help women's reproductive health either way. Either way, it helps. And again, we're talking about it. And we're finding ways to not just forget about it and accept it as the law of the land, which is what the problem right now you have with the pro-life and pro-choice world is if someone's in a red district, right, Republican district, they will always go, I'm pro-life, and they will do nothing to make less abortions. They will do nothing. They just yell on pro-life and take no action. That's number one. If they're in a blue or purple district and they're pro-life, they'll go, well, it's settled law, and that'll be their lie to just get over the issue. They won't actually have a plan to have less abortions. I actually have a plan to make impact. And I think things like this can change the culture to make real impact without having to bring the government in, and to actually have women make better, stronger, smarter choices. And it's still their body, it's still their choice, but we can now make them think differently on their own, without forcing it down their throat, without making them on their own. This is what I want. It is a culture change. As usual, my answers aren't quick. My answers take time, but they're permanent changes. They're long-lasting cultural changes to make a better world. I think we can do this. It's just not overnight. Well, Larry, I want to answer tomorrow. Okay, we tried that. It's when 70 what? Was Roe v. Wade 70 something? I forgot what year. 70, 72? Whatever it was, right? Whatever it was. Well, we've been fighting this battle for 50 years. You've been losing. Fight it my way for 50. You'll be winning. Fight it my way for 50, you'll be winning. You fought it your way for 50, and you're losing. That's all I'm saying. So, Ryan Beverett says, speaking of rebranding, Margaret Sanger was all in for weeding out the weak. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Abortion's a slap in the face for couples that cannot have kids. Ow, John. Wow. I hadn't thought of it that way. That's true. I could see it that way. I was very lucky in my world with my wife. We basically tried twice, got it twice. That was it. See, I've had sex 2 times. See that? There we go. A little more, but it's fine. Whatever. Twice is fine. But it's a good point. Matt says, on a side note, completely unrelated to anything. It's okay. This is the AMA. I had to take unconscious bias training at work. There we go. I've discussed this before, haven't I, Matt? More than once. And found my beliefs as a libertarian were well aligned with what they were trying to teach. Treat people as individuals and reach out to those different than you to encourage diversity of thought and ideas. Yes, that's literally what we talk about. Yes, absolutely. I do appreciate that. Bernard says, people aren't discussing how men can do their part in minimize abortions. Yes, Bernard. And you know what? You're right. I talked about family. And in my mind, that immediately included men. But I didn't specifically say that. And I probably should have. Thank you for that clarity. I will say that too. The family unit is not just women. The family unit includes men. Hopefully lots of men. I hope you have lots of uncles and cousins and all types of stuff. I hope you have tons of men in your world, and women too. I hope you have tons in your world. But the whole thing matters. And it isn't just the nuclear family. It isn't just the man and the woman or, who's having the baby. It isn't only that. It's the extended family too that very often supports. And you've seen it either in your own life or in others around you where, mom has a problem and sister steps up to help out, or grandma steps up to help out, or uncle steps up to help out, right? Brother steps in for a bit to help out. It makes life easier when you've got a bit of family that can step in and give a hand when you're in trouble or struggling. It is helpful when you have that. So yes, thank you, Bernard. Men too, right? Men can also deal with this issue, 100%. Yes. Tom says, yes, it's very hard for people to understand, for people to believe that prohibition doesn't work. Here's what you hear me say often. God couldn't do it in the Garden of Eden, but you can. Prohibitions failed every time, even then. Every time it fails. Absolutely. John says, I'm glad you were adopted, Larry Sharpe, and not aborted. Me too. Thank you, John. We're on the same page there. Yes. Christine says, I agree with your view, Larry, but there are bad actors on the pro-abortion side. Fetuses are being used for experimentation. There's big money in that. And you know, there are bad actors in almost everything. That's true. But if we make it to where women can make viable choices, I think a lot of that goes away. And many of the experiments that are being used on fetuses, for those who don't know, it's because they want stem cells. But we all have stem cells. Adults have stem cells. We have them. Not as much, obviously, right? Not as much as the babies do, because babies are like all stem cells. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but clearly, right? But we all do. So if you change stem cell research and change the laws to go back to the same thing I always say, consenting adults. You will hear me say this all the time. I am libertarian. Consenting adults. I don't have a problem with someone deciding to harvest some of their stem cells. I mean, it sounds terrible to me. I mean, and I'm sure it's painful going to bone marrow and stuff like that. I'm sure it's terrible. But whatever. You could do any of those things if you wanted to. Of course you could. I think there's a way of making it happen. But this clearly seems to be the wrong way of making it happen, Christine. Yes. Benjamin says, their body, their choice. Let they deal with their own morality in the end. Don't make the taxpayers suffer for your bad decisions. I'm not sure that that sounds like it makes sense, but there is a deeper root, right? If you have a bad environment, what people are worried about is, yeah, their body, their choice, but is the taxpayer going to pay for a poor woman's abortion, or is the taxpayer going to pay for a poor woman on public assistance for the next 40 years? Both are bad. Both are the wrong answer, but that's what's happening. We're making that choice, right? We're making that choice. I would rather us change the environment, change the culture, as I mentioned, so that the woman can make the right choice, meaning she either doesn't get pregnant, option one, or option two, if she does get pregnant, there is a viable choice for her to move forward. And they're going to go back to all that money we used. Imagine all the money we've used to try to stop Roe v. Wade and to fight abortion and to fight against abortion, both fight against and for abortion. Imagine if we had spent that money instead on communities helping out working moms who have babies. If you remember, one of my policies when I ran for governor was the idea of child gardens, allowing local nonprofits to act voluntarily as childcare facilities. You can still go to licensed childcare if you care about your licensed childcare, up to you, but the option to give your child over for a couple hours a day to a nonprofit so you can go off and work, giving you the option of not having the taxpayer pay for it, but instead you going out and making way any way you can possibly, make your way in this world. I think if we had more of those options, I think we wouldn't have to worry about the taxpayer paying either way. But the reality is, Benjamin, if we have a good environment where that's a thing, people would pay voluntarily. I wouldn't have to go, Benjamin, give me your money, taxation. I wouldn't have to. There'd be enough people, to John's point earlier, who are happy to take your baby, who would happily pay, wouldn't think twice. Yeah, how much that costs? I'm in. Put her on my insurance. I'll pay her insurance premiums. I'll pay it happily. There's lots of people who do it without no force. Lots would do it. And the more we do it, the less the taxpayer is picking it up anyway. So yes. So David says, I used to work in the court system. They have so many hoops for good couples to adopt. Too many, David. I would go further. Not so many. I would go to too many. Too many. That's why they're not doing it. Yes. So Jimmy says, I want a recreational nuclear weapon. Jimmy, you're why we can't have nice things. It's you. You're the reason why we can't have nice things. But as I'm joking, but I'm not joking, what I mean by that is there is a worry that people will say stuff like that. And that's why the court, I think, will always put a caveat in it. Well, we can do something, because they're worried about that type of thing, right? That's their concern. So I think that's why they always put, well, we can do some. And it does say well-regulated militia in the Second Amendment. So that, how is that looked upon? So that's why they're always going to say that. I can't imagine a Supreme Court ever going, no regulation. I don't think they would ever say that. They'd be too afraid of something like this or whatever the case may be. They're always going to cover it in some way. Matt says, I have a reason. It's called the Second Amendment. I'm with you, Matt. Sadly, most Americans are not with us. Your fear does not determine what I feel is necessary for my own protection of my family. Yeah. Yes. So, ammunition, $30 a round? Gotta hope that's not true. Is that real? Are you teasing me, Jonathan, or is that real? I hope that's not true. I'm just going to deem it not true because I don't want it to be true. So I'm just going to deem it not true. That's it. Done. God, I hope that's not true. That sounds horrible. I mean, let's talk about, like, I don't know, an artillery round. Then, yeah. Okay, that's fine. I got a 155 millimeter round. All right, and we could do that. That's fine. Yes, absolutely. So, all right. Adam, Larry, you know me so well. Two of my favorite topics, sips coffee. Cheers, brother. Cheers. Absolutely. Yes. 100%. So, yeah. Off topic AMA question. Do you believe that the current New York State legislature will pass the Health Act, which will make New York government universal single payer healthcare system? I got an email from my job's market president pleading with us to contact them and say, no, I'm afraid I'll lose my job if it happens. My gut says that it will only pass if Cuomo thinks that is what it will take for him to win. That's my gut. So what I think is, here's how I think he'll spin it. If it fails, then he will say, I wanted it. See how evil they are. I can save you. That's my gut. My gut is it fails, and Cuomo says, see, elect me, and I'll get it passed. So my gut, Rebecca, says it will not pass, and then he will take it up as his crusade for him being reelected. That's my gut, because Cuomo doesn't actually care at all about you or me or any New Yorker. He cares about what can he use to say, see, I care. That's what I think. Now, unless someone like Letitia James, who may be running against him, is already on the board, which I don't know. I'm doing some homework on this. Thank you, Rebecca. I'm doing a little bit of homework on this one. Because if she's on board, then he may say yes to take that feather out of her cap. To be forward, it's passing all has to do with how Cuomo thinks he will win or lose his election. That's all it has to do with, right? That's it. So the polling came out recently that shows generic Democrat is doing better than Cuomo in New York State. By the way, the polling still says that any Democrat beats any Republican in this state. Sadly, Republicans, I'm sorry, in New York State, that's the way it goes. Republicans not winning in this state. Not going to happen. So generic Democrat beats Republican in New York State. But generic Democrat actually does better against Republicans than Cuomo. Cuomo still wins in New York State. Some of you are not New Yorkers. I know you're blown away by that. How can Cuomo? Yeah, Cuomo in polling still wins, beats Republicans in the state. Just another Democrat wins by a larger margin. But no matter what, it's how it works. Yes. Joshua says it's a deterrent. Concealed carries is great because criminals are cowards. This is correct, Jonathan. You're totally right. What people don't realize is, generally speaking, every single, criminal who's out there, unless they're specifically gang banging and doing strikes for one gang against another, that's an exception. Take that out. Criminals are just looking for easy targets. Joshua's correct. The softer the target, the better chance the criminal goes there, which is why if you look at most bad neighborhoods, particularly in New York City, you'll see the people getting beat up are almost always elderly. They are easier, right? They can't have a gun because in New York City, and they're elderly, so they can't defend themselves. So the elderly are constantly being beaten, robbed in New York City because it's, to your point, Joshua, they're cowards and it's an easy target. So the harder the target, the less chance. Now, the exception, of course, is gang-on-gang violence. In that case, they are specifically looking for certain gangbangers. That's an exception, which I bring up because, the violence in Chicago is heavily gang-related, right? So with that exception, the average criminal who's out there going to take somebody's money or steal somebody's car or whatever they're going to do, break into someone's house, is looking for the easiest. They don't want Joshua. They want whoever they think is easiest. If they believe Joshua is easiest, they go after Joshua. If they don't, they go after somebody else. So Joshua's point is, if concealed carry, we don't know who's packing. It's a valid point, Joshua. I agree. It's a valid point. Yes. So Michael says, if Roe v. Wade is used in the abortion case and upheld, do you think the right to privacy can be used to fight mandatory vaccinations and vaccine passports? Probably not. And here's the reason why. I think the way they're going to do it, the way they're going to spin it, is that it is optional for companies and it can be only one thing versus others. And it's optional on what you do. For example, they probably couldn't do it for things like, it won't be like for driver's licenses. It won't be that. It'll be like if you want to go to a baseball game. And the argument that they'll come up with is, Michael, you don't have to go to a baseball game. So it's up to them and that kind of thing. I think that's how they'll spin it. So I think it would fail in court. That's my view, because they'll spin it in a way that says it's not government. It's optional. You don't have to go to a basketball game or a baseball game. That's how they'll spin it. However, here's what I think the good news is. I don't think they're going to have this stuff at all. And the reason is, once people start segregating based upon that, it's just a bad look. It's just a bad look. I'm seeing it right now in New York City. New York City was the epicenter of this. I live in New York City. I'm walking outside New York City all the time now. I was in Manhattan yesterday. A lot of people aren't having masks on, and people aren't even caring. Like they're not doing it. I was out. For those of you who know, I was out yesterday collecting signatures for our mayoral candidate, Stacey Pressman. I'm talking to people. I started with my mask on to see if they were okay with it. Some people had the mask on, some didn't, right? Outside, almost very few people did. But literally, they're walking to the subway station. I was catching them going to the subway station and coming out, right? So as they're going in, they start putting the mask on to go on a subway station because they're not wearing it. They don't care. They come out, mask comes off, and they keep walking. Because in the subway system, you have to. For those of you who don't know, if you're going to be in New York City transit, you have to wear a mask to be in transit. So they put the mask on to go inside because it's the rule. They come out, take the mask off. So I think it's already starting to fall apart. I don't think the vaccine passport, mandatory vaccine is actually going to happen. I think it's going to die out. That's my view, only from what I see in New York City. I hope I'm right. I could be wrong, I know. But I think, Michael, and I hope that this point is moot. I hope it is. So, yeah. All right, let me see if I keep going down here. Jonathan says, fun fact, those with peace/police officer status can effectively ignore the majority of New York State gun laws. This is true. You're right. Law enforcement is the exception. Most people don't know that. Law enforcement is an exception. Absolutely, yes. 100%. Yes. Let's see. Joshua says, it's not cultural. It's genocide of a people who have no voice, predominantly black and brown kids. This is when I talk to the left. The left doesn't understand what you just said, Joshua. When the left gets mad at me, they just go straight. You can just tell somebody who's on the right, it's not, what are you worried about? You know, it's this, it's that. And I said, you understand, there are a lot of people in America who believe in their heart that abortion is murder. They believe that it is murder. Murder. And if that's where your head is, someone saying, but my body, my choice, isn't going to land. It just isn't. It isn't going to land. And I get that. As I've crossed New York State, I saw so many people who were just like, it's murder, Larry. You're not getting it. I'm like, I am getting it. I am. And I'm trying to make less. I'm just trying to make less. That's the only thing we got. And this is what I talk about when it comes to cultural issue. It is cultural, Joshua. I will push back on this. And I'll give, here's the example I'll give you, if I can. And it's an odd example, but I hope you'll get it. In the Middle East, in many parts of the Middle East, there has been a culture of what's called honor killing. Some of you may know what that means. And what this cultural issue has been is if you are a brother and your sister is raped, and this is from the past, most Middle Eastern cultures don't do this anymore, but it is a cultural issue from their past. Some still do it. It does happen to the Middle East. And your sister gets raped. Well, the sister being raped in their culture is a terrible black mark or scar on the family. They see it as her fault for being raped. I know your head wants to explode. I'm just telling you the cultural thing in some countries in the Middle East where that's been. They say it's her fault for being raped. So what's the right thing to do? The brother has to kill the sister. That's called honor killing. Now, is that murder? Absolutely. But if your culture doesn't see it as murder, is it murder? No. Right? Your culture has to change to see that as murder. Is it killing? Yes, but killing isn't immoral. Murder is immoral. If someone's trying to kill my family and I kill them, I have killed someone. I did not commit murder. Self-defense, killing, but not murder. And that is a crucial distinction for you also to understand, Joshua, that it is cultural. If the culture says that's not murder, then that's not murder. Even though in my eyes, that's clearly murder. You shouldn't kill your sister because she was raped. That is not the right answer. That's murder. And again, in most Middle Eastern countries today, that is still murder. But I'll tell you something. In many of those countries now, to this day, even though they'll convict somebody, that brother might get 2 years for murdering his sister, because still in their culture, that ingrained of, I see why I did it, I get it. That's the jury, and the judge is thinking, yeah, I get it. They're still thinking that from their culture. So Joshua, I would push back, and I would say this is cultural, and we have to have more of these conversations. We have to talk more and not point fingers, and get the ideas that you're talking about. It is predominantly brown and black kids. And talk that out. Get the culture to change. This is not a legal war. This is a cultural war that we have to fight. I hope that's clear where I stand, Joshua. I'm not going to be a jerk. I'm just telling you where I feel in this. I hope that was clear, at least. If that makes any sense. So, all right. Let's see here. Will this not be an excuse for Biden to pack the courts? Dixie, if he was going to, it's the perfect time for him. And I go back, to what I was saying before, what Dave was talking about. He's like, if I was Biden, I might start packing courts. I mean, why not? Right? But he might be thinking, maybe, I don't know where their heads are. He might be thinking that if they go too far right, in his view, that it will draw the left out to vote. And that he can now use commercials saying, see, they're anti-women. And that's a point that I think he's right on. And that's what I said. Dixie, if the Supreme Court basically says abortion's illegal, federal, they basically say that these state laws are okay. If they do that, Democrats are going to say all Republicans are anti-women. And a lot of that's going to stick. And that is going to hurt. I believe it'll hurt the Republicans in 2022. That's my view. And he might think that. Biden may not. Biden's handlers might think that and go, fine, we'll do that, and then we'll win in the long run. Will they be right? I don't know. And that's what Smirkanish was talking about. He's like, I don't know. I don't think this is an easy answer. That might not be true, but it could be true. And the saddest part of it all is that all of this is not being dictated by the morality of having a Second Amendment. The morality of abortion is being dictated based upon how will it affect the midterm elections. This is where our country is now. Horrible. This is where our country is now. But I think, in my view, I think if I was Biden, this would be the time to pack the court. If he doesn't pack the court in the next week or two, he's not packing it. It's done. It'll be what it is. Because if the Supreme Court does what he doesn't want, it's too late. They've already done it. But I got to tell you, my view, I don't think Biden actually cares himself. I think Dave has a point. He doesn't care. His handlers might. I think Biden's going to push forward whatever he thinks he can in the next 2 years, except that he'll probably lose the House, at least the House, if not the House and the Senate in 2022, because that's what's been happening. This guy's been in government since Lincoln. I mean, so he's watched it happen. I don't know how many times. He's got to think, I'm going to lose both in 2020. I'm going to lose the House and the Senate in 2022. I got to assume that to be true. I think he has to believe that. And he may just be like, this is what happens. Let me push everything I can these next 2 years. And then we'll see what happens the last two. He'll hopefully fight, and then he's going to be done, and maybe Kamala will step up or whatever. That's where I think my head is. So thank you for that question. Lynden says, there was already a challenge to the Supreme Court. Ruling was unanimous that gun seizure as a matter of imminent threat was... Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's what you meant. Thank you, Lynden. That's clearer. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Yes, seizure. Yes. But states do it anyway. Right? I mean, they just create warrants. They make red flag laws and create warrants. So yeah, absolutely. So I do get where you're going, but yes. People right now have just popped up a bunch of things about helping out the page. And I would like you to, if you don't mind, please like, comment, and share. If I'm hitting the topics you want, I've told you before, I will touch any topic. I don't walk away from topics ever. Doesn't matter. I will touch every topic, no matter how third rail it is. I will do it because I know I have the moral high ground because I'm a libertarian. So by default, I have the moral high ground. Kind of how it works. Yes, completely biased, and I don't care. And do me a favor. We're talking about being disobedient. Take the protest and civil disobedience survey. Takes about 4 minutes or so. Click that link that's in the description. It makes my sponsors very happy. My sponsors, theadvocates.org. Please, the Advocates for Self-Government. Please click that link. Take that survey and then share it. Right? If it won't let you share it, cut and paste. Share it so that they're happy. It makes my sponsors happy. I love it. And if you want to help me out yourself, you like what I'm doing, then do me a favor. Head over to patreon.com/sharpeway and throw me $10, $25. Do that. It'll help me out tremendously. Helps me to pay my team, do stuff. By the way, we have a new shirt. Yes, we do. We have a new shirt that you can purchase at the Sharpeway swag store on Zazzle. It's a beautiful shirt. It's black. It has 3 dots on it. It says, support our troops, bring them home, help them heal. Isn't that a great shirt? If you like that shirt, click on over to sharpeway.com, click on swag, and help to the Zazzle store, and you will see it there. You can pick that up if you want to. It's like $20 or something. I forgot what it costs. Whatever it costs. I forgot what it costs. So please take that up if you like that. It's a great shirt if you want to do that also. Or support me here either way. Or do something that I would really like. Head over to YouTube, Sharpeway YouTube, and subscribe. I would love if you would subscribe on Sharpeway YouTube. It would help me tremendously. Any of those things would help. Whatever you can do. But of course, no matter what, like, comment, share. Always good. All right, let me grab a couple more if I can. Silly Larry, Matt says, wanting to include all stakeholders in the major decision. Yeah. Yes, I know. And people laugh at that, right? They laugh at that. But that's how you do well in business too. Not just life, that's business too. Joshua says, Larry, are you back in the Mises caucus? You guys should know something about me by now, Josh. That you should know already. And that is, I back all the caucuses, caucus, whatever is the way of saying that. Of course I do, all of them. I'm not a Mises caucus guy or a pragmatic caucus guy or a radical caucus guy. I'm a all the caucuses guy. If they ask me for help, I help. They want me to support, I support. It doesn't matter. I want us all to be moving forward. If I'm going to pretend in any way, shape, or form or act or try to be any type of voice here in the liberty movement, I have to understand 2 things. Thing number 1. Libertarian Party is not libertarian movement. They're 2 separate things. Libertarian movement can survive without the party, but it is a whole lot weaker without the party. The party makes the movement stronger, but the movement can move forward without the party. The party needs the movement. The party doesn't exist without the movement. That's where our activists come from. It's where most of our good candidates come from. Not all, some come from outside, but most come from the good ones come from the movement. So we need each other. So they accept that. So we have to support both the party and the movement. Clearly, I focus on the party because I think that's what I do best. It's what I like most. It's where my strength is. So I focus heavily on the party. Others can focus wherever they feel it's appropriate. But I will also support the movement, right? I support things like ranked choice voting, all those types of things, right? I will support the movement in addition to just the party. That's number 1. Number 2, we're all libertarians. So all the caucuses are important. I want diversity of thought with unity of purpose, which means I support them all. Just what Matt was talking about, including all stakeholders. Yes, to include the Mises caucus. And some people get upset. They go, Larry, how do you support the Mises caucus? Oh, they're the evil alt-righters trying to destroy the party. I hear that like every week. And I say, okay, if you think that's true, if you think that evil people destroying the world, okay, I got it. Then counter-recruit and bring in your people who are super cool and going to push the Mises caucus people back. I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with it at all. Whatever you think is appropriate, go ahead. Bring more in. Bring them all in. I'm totally happy with that. No worries. So I hope that answers your question. So hope that was good. All right. Michael says the USA shouldn't follow political science any longer. Remember the 2016 political polls. This is a very good point, Michael. Thanks for bringing this up. The polls. The polls have been wrong a lot recently. This is true. I think there are several reasons behind that. And I think some of it is the polling industry simply hasn't adjusted. That's number 1. But the second thing is because polls have been so wrong, more people don't want to answer polls. If that makes any sense. We think they're more irrelevant. So there has to be a big change. I don't think, my view, Michael, this is not a long-term problem. I think it's a short-term problem. I think within the next 3 to 4 years, we will find whatever is the answer to fix our polling. Their AI is too savvy, right? AI is already doing this. By the way, some of you don't know this. AI is already trying to figure out what went wrong, right? What actually happened versus what the poll said. So those algorithms are going to start to happen and figure out what's real, what's not real, how did it actually work. And eventually over time, my gut says about 3 to 4 years is my gut, but we'll see when that time is. The polls will also include algorithms and other handicap mechanisms to make the polls more accurate. I don't know when that will happen. Again, my gut says 3 to 4 years, because you have to wait until large election cycles to test. So you're right. It's a problem. I think temporary. You go ahead 5 years, I think they'll be accurate again. That's my gut. So we'll see. But the polling industry simply makes too much money to let that die. I don't see it dying, because right now there's no other way of deciding, who is right and who is wrong. I mean, we decide so much on polling. We decide who gets in debates. We decide, how much do we charge for things? We decide who should we cover on the news. There's so much that's decided by polling. I just can't see it going away. I think they will find the right answer. So yes. Jonathan says, if we don't have confidence in our elections, the results matter. Great question. The only thing holding us together as a people, not race, creed, culture, whatever, is the democratic principles. Yes, Jonathan. Yes. The danger of losing trust in elections is in my belief worse than any single election being stolen. Agreed, which is why I'm okay with a open party with everybody looking, all stakeholders, as Matt said, involved, looking at this to figure out if it's stolen or not. I think it wasn't, but I could be wrong, and let's go check it out. And if I'm wrong, I'll admit it. I'll hate it because it'll suck. We lost an election. That would suck. It's a stolen election. That would suck. We actually lost an election. And I mean, we as Americans lost an election if they were stolen. So I hope I'm right. But if I'm wrong, I'd rather know now than know 10 years from now, or I'm right and we can move forward. So I completely agree. Yes. So that's where we are. People question it. Was it stolen? No. Is there any question? Oh, yes. Thank you, Jonathan. Yes, 100%. And I'm going to give you a quick story. Some of you may have heard this one before. I lived in Japan for many years. I was an English teacher in Japan. And I would talk to some of my students, and there was a story once where some group of people, it might have been like, I don't know, Iranians or something, were burning our flag. And one of the Japanese students said to me, Larry, why in the world would you Americans be so angry when someone burns your flag? Like, we don't care. No one burns a Japanese flag because we don't care if someone burns a Japanese flag. It wouldn't even make the news. So he's like, maybe someone's burning a Japanese flag. Nobody cares. So it's nothing for us. We don't get upset. We don't care at all. And I said to him, of course not. Why would you? Like, what? I said, you're Japanese. There are so many things that bind you as a nation, as a people, as an ethnic background, right? Almost everyone in Japan goes to the same schooling system, reads the same books, is a similar religion, speaks the same language, right? Understands eats the same foods, very common, right? Japan is a very homogenous society compared. I think, if I remember last time I checked, it may not still be true, but last time I checked, Finland and Japan were the most homogenous societies on the planet. I think that's still true, but it may not be. But Japan's at least in the top 5 for sure. If not number 1, they're in the top 5. So it's a very homogenous society. You are bound by so many other things. Your symbols mean nothing because you're already bound by so many things. I said, America's not the case. We are not bound by common this or common that or common other thing. We're bound by only 2 things: principles and symbols. That's what binds us. That's why our flag matters so damn much to us. That's why principles of freedom and all that kind of stuff and the anthem and that matters to us, because to your point, Jonathan, that's what brings it together. The idea of democracy and the vote matter. That's critical for us. Without that, we're just a rabble. Your point's well taken. And that was, 30 years ago I had that conversation. It's still relevant to this day. Still relevant. So yes. Jake says, hey, Larry, can I convince you to run for governor of California? You already have someone amazing running for the governor of California. His name is Jeff Hewitt. That's correct. Hewitt. Jeff Hewitt is awesome. He is a current supervisor in Riverside, California, an elected libertarian in California already. Check him out. Google Jeff Hewitt, Jeffhewitt. He is awesome. I know him personally. You should, without question, support him, give him money, and vote for him. He is awesome. Hope that answered your question. So no, I don't want to run for governor of California. You already got somebody awesome running for governor of California. You don't need me. It's redundant. I mean, I am better looking than Jeff. That's true. I mean, I am better looking. But besides that, he's the guy. That's it. Besides that, he got it. Yes. So yes. Michael says, paper ballots until we can have a secure blockchain voting system. No more black box machine elections. You know, Michael, this is an interesting idea. The idea that we go backward to go forward, to put trust back in to the machine. So literally go back. I got to tell you, I like the idea. I do. It's a tough one to solve because of all the contracts that we had, the money involved, right? The contracts we put together, all that stuff. But I mean, I actually think, I mean, I'm trying to walk down the road you've just presented. I like the road. My gut says it's a hard one to go down because of all the money involved, and you know how money affects everything, right? So because of that, but in theory, I think more people would trust the election cycle if it was paper. As silly as that sounds, I think more people would trust paper. Michael, I think you may be turning me on this one. It's not a bad road to walk down, because if everyone has paper, everyone can count, everything's paper. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I think we got to get people to trust, right? I mean, that's the issue. I mean, that's the issue, is we have to get people to trust. That's the piece. And if we can't get people to trust, we're gonna struggle. And if this is what it would take, I would do it. If I thought this would do it, and my gut says it might, I would take it. I would. Yes, absolutely. So, all right, let's see here. Ed says, as for guns, we need to make things for everyone to defend themselves. Other things, we need to bring back gun safety, class, and education systems. Not just gun safety, right? There's two things to remember here. Number one, the Second Amendment's not about guns. It doesn't say guns. It's arms. It doesn't say guns. People think, well, it's about guns. It's not about gun. People say, Larry, are you pro-gun? I go, no, I'm pro-2A. There's a difference, right? If I want to defend myself with a knife, nunchucks, I want to be ninja, whatever, I can defend myself with whatever I think is appropriate or not. I have the choice, Ed, to decide to not defend myself. And I tell this story often. Some of you have heard it, but I'll say it again because it's a great story. When I was teaching, there was one of the teachers that I was working with. She was a 100% pacifist. She was like total pacifist. She's like, I would never use violence ever, no matter what. Violence is always wrong. And of course, someone asked her, well, what if you were being raped? Of course, that question comes up. And she went, that I was already in a situation. She said, I was already in that situation. She's like, a guy was about to, and I talked my way out of it. That's what I would, and I would never. And she said, and if I couldn't have, and I would have been raped, she said, I would rather be raped than use violence. I don't want to live with that. She goes, I wouldn't do it. So my response was, okay, would you stop another woman from using violence or a gun? She said, no. We're good. That's her voice. That's her values. And she can live her values as she feels appropriate in her way, as long as she's not stopping someone else from putting a bullet in the rapist. She would rather not do that. And she would rather take whatever consequences happen in her life. And I'm okay with that. That's her life. She owns her life, and she's a right to do what she feels appropriate, as long as she's not stopping someone else from doing what they think is appropriate. So while I like what you're saying, Ed, I want to go to the first part, defensive classes that would include gun safety, but not limited to gun safety. Gun safety is a part of self-defense, a critical one. It's just not by itself. You could go get a class by itself, up to you, obviously, if you think a gun is the right way to defend yourself. No problem with that. It is your choice, your life, do as you see fit. But if you, like her, would rather defend yourself with your wits and your words, good on you. I'm okay with it. You want mace? You decide. Whatever you think is the right answer for you, I'm okay with. So I will say always, I'm pro 2A, not necessarily pro gun. You do you. That's my issue. Defend yourself how you feel appropriate. So I hope I was being clearer in that. So if that's clear. Bill says Roberts cares about the prestige of the court. So he leans to whatever side he thinks is going to be less damaging to the court. Oh, interesting take, Bill. So you think he's looking at legacy more than other things? I'm open to hearing that. I'm not okay. Let me chew on that one. Okay. Tom says the Democrats have been trying to position themselves to take credit for the end of COVID, but half the country's opening and not cooperating. Yes, Tom, I think that's correct. Democrats are going to try to spin this as if they did everything. Republicans were all wrong. Everyone died because Republicans. That is going to be a spin they're going to try. I don't know how well that's going to work. And the reason I'm not sure is not because of truth, because that doesn't matter. I know it sounds horrible, but it just doesn't matter. Is because governors like DeSantis are open, aggressive, forward. They're very aggressive in how they speak and get out into the press. They're in front of stuff. I think that will break their brand, if that makes any sense. The Texas governor is doing some stuff too. So, and right now the two sweethearts of the Democratic Party, Newsom and Cuomo, who in theory, if they weren't in such terrible places, should be crushing it right now, but they can't because they've screwed up so badly and they're such bad people and they're both in trouble. But if they wouldn't have screwed us up, they should be out front now, right, Tom? See, we were right. We're so awesome. They can't do it. So they have to be quiet. And the other people in the Democratic Party aren't them. They were supposed to be the chosen ones, right? It was supposed to be Newsom and Cuomo going to go out there and show you all this stuff. They got themselves in hot water. Newsom might get removed, might get impeached, recalled. Sorry, might be recalled coming up here. Cuomo clearly in hot water. They can't be those guys. So I think the Texas and Florida governor, the other two larger states in the country, I think they're pushing forward. So I don't know if that narrative is going to land, but I guarantee you Democrats will push that narrative. 100% they will push it. Adam says, hasn't the political fight always been for swing voters as opposed to enforcing the party base? I think the issue with status quo politics is they don't pay enough attention to arguments on the fringes. Generally speaking, that has not been as true because of gerrymandering, Adam. With so much gerrymandering, the general rule is whoever wins the primary wins the election. At a national level, that has sometimes been true. But remember, most elections are local, and most elections are in gerrymandered districts. So whoever wins the primary is usually the winner. In my city, in New York City, we are over 70% Democrat. Yes, I know. Over 70% Democrat. The only reason why Republicans run for mayor here is so they can become popular enough to run and win another office locally. So they'll run for mayor so they can raise money and be seen on like the local TV station. And then they'll lose the election, knowing they would lose it. And then they'll run for like city council or congressman or something like that so they can win that. That's how Republicans can win locally. Otherwise, don't bother running. It's impossible. So what winds up happening is the primary is the election. So our governor, Cuomo, literally said this. He said, we'll pick a new mayor in June of New York City. Our election's in November. But he said, we'll pick a new mayor in June. Why? The primary is in June. So the primary will go in June. Whoever wins the Democratic primary, he just assumes will be mayor of New York. That's how it works, right? That's literally how elections are done. So in those cases, they're not looking for the swing voters. They're looking only for their base to get out. That's the issue. Now, in other issues, when it comes to other states, sometimes they realize that election turnout is so low that if they just get their base out, they win. So let's say there are, for the sake of argument, in any given area, it's relatively close. There are, 5,000 Democrats and 5,000 Republicans and 1,000, swing votes. Maybe it's not realistic, is it? 5,000 swing votes, 5,000 Republicans, 5,000 Democrats. But it says 1/3 of each in this fictitious area I just created in my mind. Well, we know that turnout is only about 30% in local elections. 30%. If 30% is your turnout, only about 5,000 people are going to vote, right? Give or take. About 5,000 people are going to vote. Out of 15,000 possible, only 5,000 going to vote. So if I get 3,000 votes, I win. So what's my goal? Push 3,000 of my people to show up because the other people aren't going to show up. So if I get 3,000 of my people to show up, if more of my people show up, I win. So I think a lot of groups also do that. The swing voter thing is really only for like national elections and such, or maybe sometimes statewide, depending on the state. But generally speaking, swing voters are ignored. I know it sounds crazy, but I think it's generally true. So, Elastic Giraffe says, agreed on a basic level with your abortion approach that fewer abortions is the point, not formal legislation and a symbolic victory. But even RGB criticized Roe's poor legal reasoning. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where we are right now. Right? That's my piece. Where are we right now? And can I move forward from that? Jonathan says, shh, you're paying too much attention to reality again. It's a problem I have, Jonathan. I have to work on it. Christine says, absolutely strengthen the family and abortion will be in decline. Yes. Right? Yes. Absolutely. 100%. Absolutely. 100%. Yes. Omar says, I'm losing faith in the Supreme Court to do what's right, and instead they will most likely rule that New York has to allow open or concealed carry and lower the threshold to carry, which is really not a win, but I can hope for my home state. Yeah. Omar, you have a valid point. My issue here is any pushback on New York state gun laws is a good thing. Of course, I want the max. Obviously, that's what I want. But I would take any pushback because that opens the door for more lawsuits, because there are so many New York state laws that if this would happen, we could have a chance at pushing back. So yes, but I would like it without question for us to win something. Yes. Missy says, as a survivor of a brutal assault and rape, I remember being terrified until I got my period 2 months in a row. Not only would the fetus not survive the pregnancy, but I would ensure I didn't. Wow. Missy, wow. Wow. Okay. That would have been horrible. That would have been horrible. Thank you for sharing something so personal like that. I know there are other people who have been through that and have probably thought the same thing. And I think there are a lot of people who wouldn't think of what you just said, how you would have felt about that and how you would have felt about the child and all those things. And maybe even someone who should have been with you after that to walk you through all those emotions, through all that pain, to walk you through all those things. And we don't do that well either. I'm going to go back, Christine. Christine, you're right. The family is important. Yes. And so is mental support. I'm going to put an and on that. And this is from what Missy said. Because even though you weren't pregnant, clearly that trauma is going to stay with you for a very long time, if not forever, of course. So thank you for adding that. And thank you for sharing something so personal. Thank you. Paul is 73. Thank you. I thought it was 72. Thank you. 73 was Roe v. Wade. There we go. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Yes. Charlie says, but if we resolve this most wedgie of wedge issues, yes, that's true. It is the most wedgie of wedge issues. You're correct. The uniturkey, as in both wings of the same bird, will have one less thing divide and create strife over. Valid point, my friend. You are 100%. Yes, valid point. Absolutely. So abortions are down in the States. And one of the major reasons why abortions are down is more access to, there's still a lot of abortions in New York State. New York State, I think it's 100,000. Is that right? Something like New York has a lot still a lot. But yes, you know what, Paula, there's something positive to look forward to. I think that's a positive thing. I don't want to dump on that. That's a positive thing. Let's have some good news. I agree. And I think some of the reasons why is two things. One, is more access to contraception, but there's a second piece too, which is, and it's going to sound crazy, more educated women. The more women are educated, the less chance of them getting pregnant unwanted. It's just how it works. And this is like a connected, and this is across every country, every group. You want your women to have less abortions? Educate your women. That's it. Educate your women. Women who are educated tend to make better decisions because they have more information to make a better decision. That tends to happen. So educate your women, you get less abortions. That's kind of how that works. Those two things are true. And if you see what's happening in America right now, education-wise, women are just doing so much better than men. It's just totally true. Doing so much better than men. Absolutely. So let's see if I can keep going here. Stem cells from fetuses always end up cancerous. Is that true? I've never heard that before. I hope it's true because then there's less reason to get them. I hope it's true. I've never heard that. This is a homework I have not done. I should check on that. Thank you for bringing that up. I'll see if I can find something else about that. Yes. The giraffe says, I wish more feminist voices would stand up for choice when girls are coerced by controlling parents or boyfriends to terminate their babies, looking for someone to tell them it's okay not to abort. And I think what we found is, in many cases, it's hard for a young woman. This goes back to the support piece. So I'm going to add it. Thank you. Missy brings it up, and now you bring it up. It's a support piece too. Not taking anything away from family, but a support piece also. It is actually hard to find a source for young women to actually give them all the options. You find option one, which is someone who goes, abortion's evil, don't do it, keep your baby. That's option one. Other one is, what's wrong with you? Get rid of your baby. What's wrong with you? And that's a common thing. Now, that's not the only thing, obviously, but that's far too common. What would be better is look at all your range of options, and government shows there are other options available for you. Here are all the options. Take your pick. And I wish there was more of that. Generally speaking, the wealthier you are, the better chance you get that. The poorer you are, you get what happens to be in your neighborhood. If it's you're evil, then that's what you get. If it's do it, why I had it, why don't you do it? Then that's what you get. And the wealthier you are, the more chance you get everything. I want every young woman or old woman, every woman, she was younger, but sometimes old women also. I want every woman to get everything so she can make the best decision possible. And education is key. Number one thing is education. So thank you for that. So, all right. Let's see here. Wait a minute. The state does not pay for abortions. That comes out of your pocket. Depends on where you are. Depends where you are. That's not 100% rule. Depends on where you are. So, both Democrats don't care. They want taxpayers to pay for abortions and public assistance. Also true. Yes, absolutely. So let me keep going here. The problem with saying pro-gun is like you don't care if a criminal gets a gun. Huh. That's good. Brandon, that's actually good. You're right. If I say pro-gun, it's something I want people shooting people. That does sound bad. The problem is I'm pro-2A, so pro-gun doesn't have a negative connotation to me. And I'm sure to others it actually does. I just thought pro-2A sounded better. Pro-Second Amendment sounded better. In a way that just says, it's all good. It's a Second Amendment. But I think you're right. That's right. Thank you for that. Saying you're pro-gun to someone who is anti-gun, they are going to hear that. Their connotation is you want people to get shot. You want the bad guys to get guns. Thank you for that, Brandon. Very good. That's very good. Yes. Women already get more shit than men. That's my point, underdog. Yes. That's my point. 100%. Yes. 100%. So, you can't say women are smarter than men do with education. I wasn't saying that. I was saying they're more educated. There's a difference. You can be smart and educated. You can be smart and uneducated. You can be not so smart and educated. They're not the same. They're not the same. But generally speaking, the more educated you are, the more info you have, the more you feel comfortable researching and knowing how to research. So regardless of your actual intelligence, whatever your intelligence level is, if you have more education, you will tend to make better decisions and you will tend to be able to research better, whatever that would have been if you weren't educated. But you're right. It doesn't make you smarter. That's true. And women might be smart in specific fields, but men make more money than women, which is more important, but there are reasons for that. I'm not sure any of that last part's true, but maybe. Brian says, Norway has legal abortion as the lowest abortion rate on the planet. I'm going to check that out. That would be a very good piece of data for me to use. And I'll use it again, Byron. The odds of me giving you any credit, slim. I'm probably just going to steal it, forget where I got it from and use it. But when you hear me use it, you won't know it's you. And everyone else who's listening will know, oh, that's Larry stealing Byron's stuff. It might happen. I will try my best to give you some credit if I can remember. Odds are I can't. I'm just going to take it. You'll know that it was you. So that's a good one. I'm going to go check that out. I appreciate that. Yes. So good. All right. Jeff says pro self-defense. Well, I like that. I'm pro self-defense. See that? That's better, right, Brendan? That's better than pro gun, right? Pro self-defense. I like that. That is good. Yes. I'm so going to use these. These are very good. Appreciate that. Okay, let's see here. Pete says, why do vaccinated people care if I wear a mask? This is something that we see constantly. And I think people are getting it now because it's been on the CNNs and the MSNBCs. And I've seen it on like local stations in New York City. And they'll say, mask regulations. Are you confused? And then I'll talk about it and they'll be like, okay, so why are you worried? I'm telling you, I was in New York City this weekend. I live in New York City. I was out and about this weekend. The mask thing is slowly going away. I was in an Uber and I said, you want my mask on? He said, nah, I don't care. I said, all right. I took the mask off because I didn't want to sit in the Uber with the mask on. But if he wanted me to be, it's his car. If he wants me to wear a mask, I'll wear a mask. So I just asked him, you mean to wear a mask? He said, I don't care. Pull the mask off. He didn't care. So, and this is New York City. So I think this thing is starting to go away, Pete. That's what I think. I could be wrong. It's from one weekend, but I was in my deli across the street. And I was like, do you, when are you going to change the mask thing? She was like, you know what? Maybe next week I'll just put like optional, your choice. I'm like, there we go. So even they're thinking, what are we doing now? I really think it's going to start going away. I'm hopeful. I am hopeful. So hopeful. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm very hopeful. So yes. Dave says it would be messed up if a Democrat lost the general election for mayor of New York. People on social media would ask Cuomo, what the F happened? I agree, right? And I'll be very forward. The only way a Democrat loses the election in New York City for mayor of New York City is if there is an outsider. And my hope is Stacey Pressman, who was our candidate here as Libertarian. I hope it is her. I don't know if it'll be her, but I hope it's her. How New York City works, some of you don't know this, and it's going to blow some of your minds. In New York City, if you're able to raise $250,000 from at least 1,000 New York City residents, so 1,000 people giving at least $250, or any combination where you get at least 1,000 people and $250,000, that happens. New York City will now match your funds 8-1. I'm not joking. So if you raise $250,000, New York City, taxpayer money, my money, I'm a New York City taxpayer, New York City will give you $2 million. Here, $2 million. Run your campaign. So we got to hope that Stacey can get that and then get that $2 million, because the second thing is, if you take the money, this is a New York City law, only New York City. If you take the money, you must debate. So you can't avoid a debate if you take the money. Now, why does that matter for me? Why do I care, right? Here's where I care. Some of you might not realize Andrew Yang is running for mayor, right? In my city. The odds are high he's going to win a Democratic nomination. He might not, but it looks good that he's going to win. If Andrew Yang wins the nomination, and then the debates happen in October, and Stacey Pressman has raised the cash, she'll be on the debate stage with Yang. Can you imagine a libertarian on a debate stage with Yang? And best part, it'll be a national debate because it's Yang. We will have a libertarian on a national debate stage. We haven't done it at the presidential election. We will have done it at the New York City mayoral election. This is why I'm hopeful. Now, why do I care about that piece? Well, first off, getting us on the debate stage, national presence is awesome. Love that. That'd be amazing for the movement. So happy about that period. But a second piece, if she can knock it out of the park, that's the only way we beat Democrats. The only way we beat Democrats is if it's the debate stage is so awesome. She does something so amazing. She just totally devastates Yang that New York goes, oh my God, she's the one. Has it ever happened? It has. Jesse Ventura in Minnesota. Sorry. Jesse Ventura in Minnesota. What happened with him is he was an independent Reform Party, I think. Independent. I think it was Reform. He was Reform Party, I believe. And he was running in 90. Is it 96? 90s. I think it's 96 he was running. I'm sure someone will correct me. I think it's 96. He was running in the 90s, got to the debate stage, knocked out of the park, won the election. So can it happen? Yes. That's about the only way, Dave. And I'm hoping it's going to be us. That is my hope. It's why I'm moving down that road, because I hope that is the answer. So, yes. All right. Let me keep going if I can. Michael says, it's funny, Larry, New York State, California, Texas are the three most regular states in the union. The only difference is Texas is Republican, New York and California are blue Democratic states. Yeah, it's true. They do like that. DeSantis is an authoritarian Trump lover. He's authoritarian, but he's less authoritarian than Cuomo. That's what I would say, Matt. He's less than Cuomo, and he's Republican. So if Republicans are going to win, he's going to be one of the guys who's going to move to the forefront to get people to believe Republicans can win and move forward. So, yes, it's hard to say he's better than Cuomo, but then again, like everybody's better than Cuomo. So it's hard. That's a really low bar to get over. Being better than Governor Cuomo is a super low bar to get over. Like almost anybody gets over that bar. I mean, Newsom just barely falls over it, but even he's over the bar, and he's just like, just got over the bar. Just got over the bar. But yeah, it's bad. Yes. And Logic's Rex says, I'll never say I'm pro-gun. I never say I'm pro-2A. It gets the anti-2A people thinking about the right rather than the gun. Thank you. Yes, about the right rather than the gun. Yes, thank you. Exactly right. Yes. He then also adds, gun safety is a term used to make gun control sound nicer. Huh. Gun safety, the term used to make gun control sound nicer. See, I've never thought about that. Maybe it's because of my background. Maybe, you know what? You guys make me rethink that. Maybe my own internal biases are changing a little bit in how I think about these things. The reason why I don't think that is in the Marine Corps, I used to run an armory. And gun safety meant gun safety. It meant not, when you run an armory, the armorers in the armory also act as guards. So we actually guard the armory also. We don't just service the armory. We don't just give out the weapons, make sure they're clean. We also guard it. So there's always at least one Marine who's armed and locked and loaded in the armory always. And then someone, believe it or not, some and others, they often sleep in the armory, literally sleep in the armory. So you sleep in the armory, you're there overnight because someone might break into the armory at night. So there's armed guards sleeping inside armories. That's a thing. And that I assume they do it now. Maybe it could be private security. I don't know. This is the 80s when I was in the Marine Corps. In the 80s, I slept in an armory some nights. I mean, we also turned, so it wasn't always me, but I sometimes slept armed in an armory. So I think of gun safety as actual gun safety. So we don't shoot somebody because we walk around with weapons, but it's a point I should rethink because clearly not everyone has slept in an armory before. So clearly not everyone has done that. Some of you Marines have, but not everyone has. It's a good point. Thank you for that, Logic. I appreciate that too. That's a real good one. Adam says, Australian elections are all done on paper, no electronic voting, period. While people question leadership abilities of candidates, I don't think we question the ability of the election process like you guys in the USA do. Ooh, that's an interesting point, Adam. Thank you for that. Also good. Yes. Maybe that's an issue. Dustin says, ranked choice voting through the blockchain could be amazing. 100% yes. But again, we have to fall back. Do people trust it? Right? I think, Michael made me think maybe the answer is going back to paper and then doing a couple locally with blockchain to get people to think that. Maybe. So I'm open to what Michael's thinking, right? I am open to this idea. I really am. So the Giraffe says, Justin Amash, Spike Cohen, Dave Smith, and Larry Sharpe, best Libertarian president primary season ever. I appreciate that. But again, to be forward with you guys, the odds of me taking on a presidential seat in 2024 or even attempting it are slim. I would have to be the most popular libertarian in the country at the time. The odds are I won't be. If I was, I would consider it, but the odds are I won't be. And why does that matter? Because we want a popular top of the ticket so that we can support all the other people who are rocking and rolling across this country. I want that to be a very popular ticket. That's important to me. Would I consider a VP slot? Absolutely. I'd support any of those gentlemen if they were doing a VP. Of course, I'd happily support them and be their VP, which the vice president is really support staff, and I'm happy to do that. But I don't know if I would be. I things would have to change tremendously for me to be running for the president in 2024. A large change would have to happen for me to make that happen. So I just want to be clear on that. The odds are, if anything, I might be a VP slot. Maybe. So yes. Ryan says, exactly. If the flag is meaningless, might as well burn it if you're already shitting on the Constitution. You know, it's you guys crack me up. That's interesting, right? That's interesting that you might be, if you're trashing the Constitution, who cares about the flag? Valid point. Yes. Dave says, if we find out that it was stolen 10 years from now, I don't think it was, Democrats would just say we did it for the Republicans' own good. Yeah, how do you spin that? So that's a valid point, Dave. What if we find out 10 years from now, oh my God, they were right. It was stolen. We were wrong. They were right. They can't admit that, right? You're right. There's nobody can go, yeah, it was stolen. We knew it. But, whatevs. They can't do that. So they're going to have to say, well, it's because Trump was so evil. We did it for your own good or something. Yeah, but do we buy it, right? I mean, if they actually came out and found that it was a stolen election, how does America actually respond? Because whether you're a Democrat or Republican, if you believed that the election could be stolen, I mean, if you're a Democrat, if you're a hardcore Democrat, if I'm a hardcore Democrat, if I'm like a socialist, and I think the whole world has to be changed, I'd be mad we didn't steal all the elections, wouldn't I, Dave? I'm like, well, why'd you let any Republicans survive? We should have just made the whole country AOC, right? I mean, Bernie and AOC across the country. I'd actually be madder if I was a Democrat. If I was a Democrat now, and you could actually steal elections, and that was the thing, you just steal them. If that's true, and maybe it is. I mean, in theory, right? Could they be doing it to stay the 50-50 fight? Maybe. But if I'm a hardcore Democrat and socialism and all that stuff, I'd be even madder, Dave. I'd be like, you could have stolen the election and you didn't make everybody Bernie and AOC? Oh my God, we had a chance to make our socialist utopia that we've been preaching for years. Why didn't you do that? I think Democrats would be angrier. Don't you think they'd be even angrier? Why didn't you make the world the socialist utopia like you were supposed to? Maybe. So, Larry, is the higher ranking military usually nonpartisan? If they are, hypothetically, it would be good to temporarily replace Biden with a military leader. I get the fear. Generally speaking, the higher ranking military tends to be, generally speaking, more conservative and more status quo. That's the issue. Status quo. Military people like status quo. Most of them like, the type of Republican they like is like a Mitt Romney or a George Bush Republican. Type of Democrat they like is a Biden Democrat, or like Biden during Obama, right? That kind of Democrat. They like that, or Bill Clinton. They like status quo Democrats and status quo Republicans. They tend to like status quo. They lean conservative, but if you look at most people in the higher ranking of the military, they like status quo, right? Let's just keep stuff the way it is and we're good. They like that. There are some who aren't, obviously, and presidents tend to pick the ones they like best. Do I want to replace Biden with military leader? Never. That is a terrible precedent. It is a terrible precedent to replace a leader with a military. To replace a leader, period, is a bad idea in general, unless the people want that person replaced, right? Impeachment is the right avenue is the right avenue to go down if you want to replace a leader. But I would never want to be like, you're out, here comes military leader. Military juntas rarely ends well. I mean, it doesn't end well. So I wouldn't want to go there. So yeah, I'm not going to go there. So, all right. Drywall says, come on, get the Mises bandwagon. I'm on all the bandwagons. So I'm on all of them. I'm on all of the bandwagons. Pete says, but Larry, will there be a tie-dye Sharpe way shirt? There is a tie-dye Larry Sharpe shirt. There is, but it's for governor. I'll bust that one out one day. So I got to get a tie-dye. Okay, that's it. Pete, we're getting a tie-dye one too. Yes, we are making another one. Yes. I will absolutely do that. Yes. Dustin says, I've always wanted to bring our troops home shirt. I'm getting one. I love it. There we go. Yes. Paula, we're going to have the t-shirt. There we go. I love that. Yes. There we go. Yes. Logic in government since Lincoln. Yeah. Biden's been around forever. I mean, that's all he knows. That's all he knows. Yes. 100%. So Mao's one-child policy enforced abortion is just cultural and not murder. It was cultural, Joshua. It was. You can make me walk down this road? I'll walk down it. What happened in China when Mao made the one-child policy? You know who enforced the one-child policy? You know who actually enforced it? Grandmas. Not making this up. Ask someone who lived in China then. I toured China in 1994, 5, in that area. I toured China. I did a multiple city tour. I was there for like 3-4 weeks. And I was talking to people who were Chinese, and I knew what happened. I'd asked them. They all agreed with what I was saying. It was grandmas who did it. He didn't have the physical bodies to go around people in uniform, so he used grandmas. Grandmas went around and found out who's pregnant, who's not. They did it. They had an internal secret police, which is grandmas. That's culture. I'm still not done. You go down to again, if you think I'm making this up, Joshua, ask anybody who lives in China. They will tell you. Go down to the river. There's a sign. It says, please don't drown your daughters here, written in Chinese. It wasn't they didn't want you to drown the daughters. It's still not there because there's drinking water. Go drown them downriver. I'm not joking. That's how horrible that became. That's culture. It was against the law to get pregnant. It was against the law to drown your baby. It was against the law. If you happen to have a daughter first, that was your child. Have the daughter. Well, Chinese culture says daughter's not good enough. Cultural. Says daughter's not good enough. Gotta have a boy. So what would happen? Their daughter would die. So what happened was not abortion. What happened was infanticide. That's what actually happened. Infanticide. They'd wait till the baby was born, and then if it was a girl, they would kill her. They would drown her. Oh, she fell in the river. I'm not making this up. I'm not mad at you, Josh. I'm sorry. I'm emotional because I hate it. If I'm coming across as angry at you, I'm sorry. That's not what I'm trying to achieve. I hope it didn't come across that way. Joshua's not. It's emotional for me because it's freaking horrible. So it bothers me. So I'm emotional because I'm bothered by it. They were literally drowning young. I have 2 daughters. I couldn't imagine drowning one of my daughters. They were drowning their babies. Yes, that's cultural. And you can call it murder if you want. I do. I think it's murder. But clearly their culture said no. They had signs. They were okay with it. They knew it was happening and they kept doing it. They knew it was happening and they kept doing it. Yeah. Culture's freaking powerful, man. It's freaking powerful. More powerful than killing babies. That's all I'm saying. It's more powerful than killing babies. You can say what you want. It's cultural, and culture is freaking powerful. We have to change culture, Joshua. We're in the same team, brother. Now, I'm hoping not. I'm not mad. I hope it didn't come across that way. I'm emotional because it bothers me. I'm not mad. Just understand. It's culture, man. It's a big deal. It matters tremendously. It really does. Anyway, sorry. Let me move forward. Let me keep going if I can, please. All right. Your answer about infanticidal Chinese grandmothers makes me think how difficult it was for China to shake the practice of foot binding. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. 100%. Dave says the one-child policy actually backfired in China. China's rethinking their policy because not enough people to replace the current workforce. Yeah, this goes back to violence, as I always say, Dave. Exactly right. Violence is a very effective short-term solution, right? Short-term, I don't have any money. Pull out my gun, rob Dave, I got a money. All right, look at that. I'm winning. I got some money. Yay. Long-term, me and Dave got problems. That's not going to go over well in the long run. Short-term, my problem solved. One-child policy solved the short-term policy. It did. It did. Less kids. Long-term, you're right. It was not the right answer, and others are not following that. It's a terrible, terrible problem. So 100% yes. Christine says, I have a friend that adopted 2 Chinese baby girls. There we go. Yes. Adam says, Larry, I thought and lived in China until COVID. The grandparents still have that mentality. Thank you, Adam. Thank you for backing me on this one. Yes, absolutely. It's called big uncle syndrome. Uncles would often tell on family members who weren't against the Communist Party. They were often well-funded, even given houses for selling out their family. Yes, thank you, Adam. And that's culture. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Paula says, you're right about China, Larry. The lucky female babies were just abandoned. That's why it's relatively easy to adopt a baby girl from China. Yes, 100%. Very true. Yep. Let me keep going here. Grabbed a couple of those. Thank you for all those. Commander-in-Chief is the way wrong name for what we need. Ooh, I like that. That's good. Yes. So Byron says, I've often wondered what would happen if Trump ran as an independent or libertarian. He wouldn't be able to survive. You can't get they ignore you. Doesn't work. I've tried. It's so hard. Oh my God. It's so hard. Yes, absolutely. It's absolutely terrible. All right. Let's see if I can keep doing this here. Let's see here. Even cocaine shouldn't be illegal. If there's a war on drugs, the drugs are winning. I'd rather legalize the drug and reduce taxes. I actually agree with what you're saying, Brendan, this one. The issue is back to culture. Is the culture ready to make that move? My gut says no. We still don't have yet reality of legalized marijuana in New York yet. I think in this case, I think we have to go step by step. As much as I agree with you, and I wish we wouldn't, I'm trying to make change and make things better. And I think we have to start with the idea of cannabis first and then move down the road slowly until the culture gets okay with it, can deal with it. We know how to handle it. I think then we move forward. And I know you're saying, you know what? But people are going to jail. They are still. I don't know another way, right? I don't know another way of making it work. So, yeah. Dave says, Justin Joe's Reform Party. There we go. Yes. I knew it was one of the independent parties. 100%. So, yeah. Paul asks, how did it go yesterday with Stacey Pressman? We got over 100 signatures in about 3 hours. So, not bad. You know, not bad. We deal with it. Not bad. Yep. So, all right. Let's see if I can grab a couple of these here. Larry and I taught English and lived in China until COVID. Okay. You already brought this up. Yeah. Taught, not thought. Taught. That's what you meant. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes. There we go. Good. All right. Ed says the one-child policy affect badly since there were a lack of Chinese women in the population. Look at the video documentary about leftover women. You understand. The other piece you find is when you have an unbalanced society, meaning so many men and so few women, there are lots of other cultural, social issues that begin to happen also. So lots of issues you have to worry about. So it's definitely not healthy at all. Guys, you guys gave me so many things that I really appreciate. Don't forget the things scrolling across the bottom. Subscribe to the YouTube page. It's the Sharpe Way YouTube page. Not Larry Sharpe. I love that page too. But subscribe to Sharpe Way because I get canceled on Facebook. I get canceled on Twitter. I got to be able to go to YouTube. So please subscribe to the Sharpe Way YouTube page. And also, if you can, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Sharpe Way Twitter. It does matter. If you like what I'm bringing, if you think it's valuable, support the show. Patreon.com/SharpeWay. Throw me $10, $25, whatever it is. Throw me whatever you can throw me. I love it. Otherwise, I was going to buy a shirt. If you look in the chat, it's in the chart. Head to the sharpeway.com. Click on the swag. Click on the store. The new shirt's there. If you want to use it, feel free. It's a cool shirt. Three dots says support our troops, bring them home, help them heal. That's kind of cool. I like that. Also take if you don't mind, you can also take the civil disobedience survey. There it is right there. Take that. That's awesome. Helps out my sponsors. And of course, always like, comment, and share. It does matter. It makes us grow. Guys, I want to say thank you so much for this evening. I appreciate all the time you give me. I will be on A Free Solution radio show tomorrow at noon and then back here again at 7. Have a great night.